Good morning. I'm Anant Nyshadham, a co-founder of GBL and an economist studying worker and firm productivity. In the spirit of today's discussion, I'd like to highlight some of the growing evidence that shows us a clear path forward on empowering women across the global south to thrive in the formal sector. But in order to get to what we believe are the most transformative opportunities to invest in the future of female economic empowerment, we will first have to face some hard truths. So bear with me for a moment. The optimistic part is coming, I promise. For all of us here today, I imagine the collective dream of erasing social and economic disparities between men and women has been a top priority for many years. Yet I'd suspect we'd all agree that progress has been slower to come than we would have hoped. In fact, if we were to be brutally honest with ourselves, a quarter of the way through the 21st century, we probably would have hoped there wouldn't still be a need for a conference like this one. But there is very much still a need, and there still will be a need 25 and 50 years from now if we do not fundamentally change the way we think about the problem. There are a few hard truths we must accept. One, informal work and microenterprise ownership is not a path to sustained economic empowerment and intergenerational upward mobility. Formal work, as it currently exists, however, in most industries in the developing world, is not designed for women to participate, let alone thrive. Equitable development and access to opportunity doesn't just happen one day. It certainly hasn't up till now. Rather, history has shown quite the opposite. Structural inequity can survive our best intentions. It is unfortunately seemingly the natural state of things. And incremental progress is really no progress at all. Deliberate and wholesale redesign of work is required to create truly transformative private sector opportunity for women. Let's start with a few high-level statistics. 450 million women, roughly, of prime working age exist in India today. However, only 150 million are working in any form at all, for even just an hour a day or an hour a week. Of those, only 35 million are working full-time, and only 7 million of those are working in formal jobs with minimum wages, benefits, and worker rights protections. That means 30 million are working full-time in informal jobs, earning less than, by the way, 30% of those in formal work, which, by the way, is already only 70% of what men are working are earning in each of those jobs. And that leaves 300 million not earning at all, though I think we'd all agree they are likely working a great deal. Over the last decade or so, $20 billion per year has been given in microloans to mostly female owners of microenterprises. And nearly $1 billion is spent every year on skilling in India, with more than 7 or 8 million women having been trained by the government to date as a part of multiple schemes. This number should double female workers in the formal sector. But among skilled women, more than a third don't use the skills at all to work for pay. A majority of women are being skilled in low-income occupations like beauty and tailoring with high proportions of informality. And churn contributes to this lack of progress as well. Some freshly skilled women may join the formal workforce, but the majority of those who join will drop out in less than a year. All of this translates into no clear progress in women working in formal jobs for pay. Rather, economically active women are disproportionately stuck in self-employment and casual informal labor, in which the earnings gender gap is 2 times as large as it is in the formal sector. Meanwhile, Indian industry is poised to grow with tremendous opportunity for employment across a myriad of industries. Employment in the following industries are expected to grow the most: digital services, financial services, hospitality, retail, e-commerce, several others. Some of these sectors are already present some opportunity for women. For example, representation of females in digital services and retail is between 25-30%. And women represent the majority in health services. But female participation in most of these sectors, hospitality, e-commerce, renewable energy, is no more than 10% at best. And really, there's no hope of that percentage growing without intervention. This admittedly simplified view of the status quo highlights a few critical questions. How do we get more women into formal work in a universal sector, occupation agnostic kind of way? How do we keep women, once they're in the formal sector, from dropping out? And how do we turn each of these formal sector job opportunities into career opportunities for women? The answers are no doubt numerous. After all, stubborn problems tend to require often a portfolio of solutions. And certainly much more is left to learn. But we know more now than we did even a decade ago. And research suggests many high-impact ways to invest. Finally, this is the optimistic part, as I promised. Let's take each of these questions I just posed in turn. How do we bring more women into formal work in a universal kind of way? Recent studies by Lisa Ho, Suhani Jalota, and Anahita Karandikar, three, by the way, very talented, promising young economists who happen to be women and of Asian origin, demonstrates that when women are provided a more flexible access to work, both in terms of hours, the ability to multitask with children by their side or with other domestic chores, they're much more likely to take up work. Similarly, several of our research studies show that women are much more likely to take up formal paid work if they can do it from their homes, with the impact seemingly explained by their ability to work, again, when it's convenient for them, and also making it feasible for them to multitask with their domestic responsibilities at the same time. In addition to adjusting work to be more flexible in this way, we need to then provide proof to women who have been up till now discouraged that this flexibility now exists and that formal work is indeed possible. That same study by those three young economists also shows that once women are indeed drawn into formal work by being offered a more flexible paradigm or schedule, they're much more likely to take up formal work of any kind after that. They've been shown that this is something they can actually do and overcome that kind of baseline discouragement. However, I would caution us to be too optimistic that this will happen without some deliberate design. There's another study by another young female economist, Maddie McElway, that shows that if we convince women in households that formal work is possible and women can juggle that and their domestic responsibilities, but we don't actually provide any support or resources, women might over time actually just learn that this is indeed exactly what they feared. It's not feasible, and they need support, and this is too exhausting. Secondly, once we get some women into the formal sector, how do we keep those that are even there from dropping out? Some of our studies have demonstrated that if we provide women an anonymous, effective form of communication to be able to report grievances and any issues they have, that we can significantly reduce attrition from work and even absenteeism. And actually, we can improve productivity in a flow sense, particularly when management at the workplace and HR representatives are incentivized to actually care about the kind of metrics in clearance of these reported grievances. In addition, several of our studies have shown that support systems are critical. Setting expectations honestly and transparently at the beginning providing resources throughout the transition into formal work, which is often a new thing for women on the margin, and providing peer mentors to alleviate loneliness and anxiety can, again, dramatically reduce attrition from the workforce and increase the scope for tenure and advancement. Lastly, in just a simple sense, we need to make these jobs worth keeping. We need to provide opportunities for advancement, make them careers, create enabling environments, both from a management and from a physical comfort sense, to be able to enable the highest productivity, which is a necessary condition for good pay in these jobs. Lastly, that brings us to then, how do we in fact make these jobs worth keeping? How do we provide career opportunities, not just work opportunities? One of our studies recently has shown in Latin America, in the fast food setting, that women are far better managers of female workers than are men. And in fact, women are actually no worse than men, and women are actually better than men in mixed gender settings as well. All of this is to say that female management can be an extremely productive investment, and one that we're not making broadly across even industries in which women dominate. Why is it that women are such better managers of both fellow women as well as mixed gender settings? It's because they tend to be better at trust, communication, establishing rapport with workers, all things which are significantly important for productivity. But in order to achieve these goals of female management representation, we need to make investments in, and maybe even leverage technology. One of our studies that's underway right now is testing whether we can leverage an app-based screening and training tool to both provide objective measurement of how good female candidates for advancements are against their male counterparts, and provide a ready, targeted training to remediate any deficiencies or skill gaps that exist. There's, of course, something to be said for meeting South Asian women where they are now, to alleviate the effects of acute poverty by means of microloans and cash grants. But let's be clear, these investments are in general not transformative and are limited in their scope for driving upward mobility and breaking intergenerational cycles of poverty. We know what development looks like. It's not a mystery. History of industrialization is quite clear. The brightest future we can try to construct for women all over South Asia and the global South more generally isn't the ability to be a domestic worker or even to manage or own a beauty salon or a snack cart. It's to be a manager or executive or owner of a medium to large scale business, which in turn provides dignified, lucrative careers to hundreds or thousands of fellow women. So, in summary, what are a few key takeaways of what I've discussed today? With nearly 500 million potential women workers, the 7 to 8 million women working in formal jobs in India today is not enough. Informal work and self-employment are not transformative economic activities, no matter how much capital and support we provide. Millions of Indian women are ready and able to work today, and hundreds of millions are waiting in the wings. Millions of jobs will be created across a myriad of sectors in India over the next few years alone. So there's plenty of opportunity. But skilling alone and growth in the very few female-dominated sectors that exist will not achieve our gender equity goals. Without deliberate change in the design of work, women will not be able to take up and thrive in these jobs. We must redesign work broadly across sectors and occupations to be more flexible and feasible for women, and then prove to women in households and their households that we've done so effectively. Let's together transform the common excuses we have heard for decades. these jobs are not suitable for women, women wouldn't want to work these jobs, into a roadmap for change. Make the job suitable, adjust the hours, enable work from home, provide safe transportation, make workplaces more physically and psychologically comfortable. We know now all workers will be made more productive by many of these interventions. And as a result, these investments often have dramatically positive ROIs. We at GBL will keep designing and measuring returns to these interventions. But those of you here from the private sector need to be willing to try them. Those of you here representing foundations and investors in investor capital need to be willing to pay for these trials and to prioritize private sector collaborations to create these solutions and evidence as a public good. And then we all need to collaborate to take these solutions to scale and demonstrate to women across the global south who were previously discouraged that these jobs are now feasible for women to take up and thrive. Thank you.